Good morning, everyone. Okay, we're on March 20th, 2023, and I decided to do another energy reading this week for a variety of reasons. But what I would like you to do is look at this as just not a general energy reading, but a good way to explore areas in your life, in your business, because sometimes it's so easy to get caught up. People, look at oracle cards or cards as an interpretation of the future instead of interpreting it as a way to access areas of our life that may be not balanced or unbalanced, or areas in the collective that may not be balanced or unbalanced, and what we can do to balance those things out. It's always about increasing awareness and helping us to see things from a different perspective, to open our eyes to things. So I decided to take out one of the archetypes, which I don't usually combine with the other cards, but obviously it's usually an archetype card I do. And the reason that I use the archetype cards is that the archetypes are a great way to help reflect back the light and shadow aspect within us all, which helps us grow spiritually and helps us often open ourselves up to so many things. So the card that came out today was, or the archetype that came out today was the angel archetype. And I'm just going to read Caroline Mizzy's version of the angel, but I will, bring in my interpretation in the way that I'm doing this reading today. So the light attribute is helping those in need with no expectation of return. Right? The shadow attribute is acting innocent or angelic to mislead others, or falsely claiming to be in touch with angelic guidance. So that could be also people who think that they're getting the right, they're getting channeling, but it's not maybe coming from a false guide, or it might be that it's their own interpretation of what's coming through. It's not coming through as crystal clear as would hope to. But if we look at the light attribute in the angel, if we think about earth angels, often earth angels are referred to people that show up in people's lives at times when they just need that bit of support. We all have had experiences in our life where someone has just appeared and really helped us in some sort of way. And in many ways that, it can feel like an earth angel. And often many healers and light workers are viewed by others at times as earth angels. But if we look at the earth angel aspect and energy of that at the moment, is many ways it's the people that are doing things, and they do not do it just for financial motive or to get recognized, or to just do it so someone else does something, right? In many ways the angel actually can also interestingly can correlate with the mother archetype, the caregiver archetype, and the nurturer archetype, because there's an altruist perspective. In its purest light, these archetypes come from a service to others. They don't go in doing things just to get something out of it. They are led by the heart, and it's part of their mission. So many of you in my community will have an aspect of the earth angel. You are not motivated by money in that perspective. The first and foremost things is that you feel a strong yearning to help others. And many earth angels find themselves in deeply caring roles, like they're a nurse, a caregiver, healers, therapists, counsellors, all that type of thing. And you're often the person that people feel safe with and naturally supported with. In its latest form, you come here with a mission, right? And everybody has a mission. Everybody has that earth angel aspect within them. Just some of us are more fortunate to have that more evolved for a variety of reasons. Now, when we are fatigued, when we're burnt out, when sometimes we overgive, because there is an element often that the angelic, you know, when we are channeling in aspects of light, the light is just never ending, right? It's like when you are tapping into giving from a light perspective, right? And you're in the flow and you are really connected to spirit. What do I mean? That I don't mean like just because sometimes people, when we say that, people think it's like people know that. What I'm talking about is I believe it's source, God. Everybody has different interpretations, but to me, it's that light aspect of God in the universe, the highest dimensions of love and light, and that comes through. When you're tapping into that, it's very easy to be an earth angel or to be of service because you are actually being, it's not the mind, it's you, there's something, a soul level is guiding you, right? And you're coming from the heart, the soul's open, heart, soul's open, so it's very easy. But when we get entangled in the humanness and we get over entangled with other people's stuff and we're not in the flow and we're not channeling and we're not connected, our connection's not crystal clear. Our connection is not completely pure. And I don't mean that it's not that we're not trying to come from pure intentions, but we're human. And we can get exhausted and tired and we can get distracted by life and distracted by so many things. We are not always channeling that. We're not in that clear flow. And then we get burnt out. We don't do things. We're not doing things from guidance. Sometimes it's also our I know for me, rescue, the matter, oh, maybe I need to do this, maybe I should do this, but it's actually not going from the guidance perspective of truly helping people. Because one of the biggest challenges that we can have as what may be seen as earth angels or those of us that are attracted to the healing modalities, the wounded healer, no matter if we like it or not, is within us all. And that can show up differently for every person. So, for example, sometimes the creative healer or therapist, someone who's got a strong creator, but who would just prefer to be in maybe they're into therapeutic art or all sorts of things, maybe hobby therapist, art therapy, psychic art. There's so many different people, or people are just actually artists, that do healing, they heal people through their art. That type of healer can often want to, and how could you say, hide away sometimes within their own domain and use that as a way to hide away from the world. Or they just maybe get into the inner child aspect of the play, but may not want to always face the world, right? And then when we look at like the hero archetype, who can also show up as part healer as well, is the hero archetype. Is very much like, if we look at the moment, the light warrior, the truth seekers. We're seeing this a lot. This has been playing out a lot in the last few years. People that are really strongly standing up and trying to lead others towards the truth and help wake people up. They have extreme courage, mental resilience, and strength to push the way. But the reality is, out of their, like everyone, they can also fall into their own the light and shadow can show up in all sorts of ways. So it's understanding within you what is that the angelic aspect, the divinity and the purity, and tapping into that and helping when the angelic archetype can help us get back into our divinity, because often our other archetypes can be very strong, can really pushes into more the human aspect, where the angelic energy and angelic archetype can help us toward creating heaven on earth. And that's part of the earth angel. And a lot of us, I mean, I've had all sorts of things like readings done, but I don't mean just like psychic or whatever readings, but what they call your soul's mission and all that. And these are people like, for example, I've done some courses with Dr. Can. She's a phenomenal teacher and healer. It was quite a few years ago, but she identified for me that my part of my mission was an earth angel, right? And that was how it was shown up, because I wasn't motivated by money. I was motivated by helping, but I also understood that the human aspect of me, the rescuer, the caregiver, the nurture, that's where the imbalance, the human aspect could cause me problems. So it's always understanding that if we can tap into the angelic aspect of the earth angel, we are guided on a mission and we're protected, right? But it's sometimes we fall into other realms. Also, going back to what I said at the beginning about channeling, one of the things that I find hard, and I know this does trigger a lot of people, but as someone who, so for example, I've trained in healing for 30 years. I've worked with lots, I've been on the receiving end as I've been the student with many, many teachers, but also been the client and also the teacher, right? I was an Reiki master teacher for many years. I was an intuitive teacher and, taught empaths and sensitives, all sorts of things. And one of the things I would say is that, for example, it's interesting, there's a card, it'll make more sense when I talk about the rest of these cards, but we are creating the new earth. But if you look at even the New Age community, the New Age community has a lot of infiltrations and teachings of things that aren't really from the light. They're packaged as from the light, and people think that if they're doing something with pure intention, that it's all from the light. But one of the things that I even teach my students from accredited training is that you can come in with thinking that you have pure intention, right? But lack of awareness and lack of knowledge and using tools and techniques that actually are not for the light obviously can create a lot of conflict in the energy field and the vibration. Now, a healer that I've been working with two different spiritual teachers recently, but one of the teachers that I've been doing, I had invested a lot of money in the last 2-3 years through the pandemic, was Ed Stretcher. And he's a phenomenal teacher, and phenomenal healer. And he's a great teacher, but a lot of people find his teachings a wee bit controversial. But he gets results, and he gets results in many conditions where most people and even medical professions can't do anything for people, particularly things like terminal illnesses where people have not got long to live. And he has talked about over the last few years of, he always saw healers, mostly healers, having a huge amount of attachments to them. And even people who were doing attachment work, not recognizing how much attachments that they had and other things in their energetic fields. And he can give something, he can give, healers, he's very forthright. And some people say it was a hard time, but he's trying to be honest with people, and he's trying to do best for those people to get past that, right? And one of the biggest challenges that is for many people who only dip their toes in certain modalities and certain tools and techniques, is not always being able to decipher or discern what is truly of the light, because things can appear as if they're from the light, right? And I believe that one of the biggest things that, and the biggest teachings that many people have on earth right now is discernment, is spiritual discernment. And of course, some of us find certain things easier than others for every reason, but we've all got to work in things. And like everything in life, and particularly spiritual work, it's about doing the inner work, right? And the more that we can tap in to divinity and really feel what true divinity and that angelic connection feels like, that angelic element of purity, the more that we understand what is of the light and what is actually slightly nefarious or interfering. And, you know, I had an experience many years ago when I was in intensive care, and it shifted it basically almost overturned my life in one way. It was so life changing. And it made me look at energy, healing modalities, so many things in a completely different perspective. And it took me down a path I never ever thought I would go. But it helped me not to be scared to explore the dark aspect of the light, right? Because sometimes as light workers, we're so focused, and even though this card is about us tapping into the light, if we deny what is in the shadow and the dark and we're fearful of it, well, guess what? We attract. But the more that we feel empowered and we even call in an angelic team and ask always for only for the highest, and really work on that, we connect. And I think this is such an important card at the moment for people, because so many things have went on in the energetic collective, and there is so many nefarious things that have been at play, right? And one of my friends, and I think he was extremely accurate, said at the very beginning of this pandemic that it was like a spell cast. And the more that we understand, you can see and he said that from the very beginning, he felt it was like a spell. And if you look at what goes on, that is why many people have been programmed. Many people have not seen the wood from the trees. But when you're in your divinity, that spell is other people's spells, other people's projections, other people's programmings is harder to get in. It's not going to get in when you're connecting at that and you're allowing that divinity flow. So this is really, really important. Okay, so the next card is birthing a new age, right? Okay. Okay, so this is God, I forgot her name. Oh, some of you will know her name. I forgot her name. I'll come back to me. Anyway, so Rebecca Campbell's cards, right? Okay, birthing a new age, bringing new creations, dreaming a new world into being, right? Now, when you see in this card, the woman is standing in the light, but what am I seeing? What am I feeling at the moment, right? So, one of the things that I know that we're all experiencing is this the shift. It's like a shift, right? So there's a shift in earth, right? There's a shift in the collective. There's also a shift in people's mindset, right? And when there's a shift in people's mindset and there's a shift in anything in life, it can feel uncomfortable, right? But there's also can be underneath that an energy of excitement for new, from freshness. So when there's change, it depends on how we perceive it, right? And if we can perceive that this, what can appear as crazy, what can appear as chaotic, what can appear as confusing, but also what can appear as destructive, as an opportunity to move into the light, an opportunity to create something fresh and brand new, to start over, to start with a clean state, but to start much stronger and much wiser, much more focused, much more soul-led, heart-led. If we think about our lives, right, most of us go all along a journey and we can make lots of mistakes, and it might not even be mistakes, it might be just lessons, right? And there's some things that we think we wish we hadn't done, but guess what? With that, we have all these nuggets of wisdom. And the more that we evolve in our spiritual journey and the more work that we do, we become so much more stronger mentally, emotionally, and physically. We become less triggered by other people and other things. And we're not as worried about what other people think because the soul is guiding us, right? We can often find it easier to speak our truth because something is pushing us, but we have cleared the deck for a lot. And as we go on and on our journey, we're getting, it's almost more, if we are doing the work and if we're doing the work, we're getting more clearer, we're getting more stronger, we're getting more brighter. And we've got more wisdom and skills. So guess what? We can create, if we have to start again, we can start it even better than we've ever imagined before. That's where we're at. We're all at this beautiful aspect of creating new earth, right? And the universe is filled with all possibilities, and your connection to source, your connection to the light, your light, and it's about you owning the light. It's about being part of the bigger picture. It's being part of the collective, but the reality is that you have to stand in your light and you have to be able to connect with that light, connect with your soul, connect your soul path. And if this is an area that you don't feel really strong in your soul and you don't know, mostly what you feel guided to do, if you feel that you don't know your mission or you don't feel that you're on path, this is an area you really need to work on, because if you're not soul aligned and you're not connecting and feeling that and feeling aligned. Of course, we all go through bumps. But the last week and 2 weeks ago, I started getting through a bit of, because I knew I was stretching. I knew things where it was time to let go, and even let go of certain, maybe even types of people I was working with, all sorts of things. And, certain things that I had to have the courage to leave behind. But it was about me being guided, right? And also getting out of my head. A lot of people go on constantly about the mental mind and about how your mindset, and of course your mindset is extremely important, but if you do not have a good soul connection, you're not a good channeler. You're just focusing, you're just trying to change the ego. You're not allowing the soul to come through, right? And this is so important at the moment now. And interesting, what does it tie into? It ties in with this other beautiful card. And I can't remember, this is the new cards that a friend's got me. But the golden thread, right? Golden thread, fractal lines. I'll show you first, sorry. Right. You can see it's like a beehive. And it's all these kind of, how if you think about a beehive and all the bees working together and all the connections, right? But it's almost like a tree. It's a tree out to the universe, and it's like threads of gold, right? So fractal lines connect me to my soul people. Now, the more that you show up in your work and you do aspects of your work with no expectation, that you're not just doing it always to get something, like you actually genuinely are coming from the soul and you're living your purpose, right? You're channeling through a pure energy, right? You're not just doing it what you're going to get out of it. I am a great believer, and I've believed this from a child, and I think this is why this has always been part of my purpose, helping people with their gifts. As a child, I can't explain when it happened, but it was like, I remember, in fact, I think I can remember some of why this belief was formed, but I don't know if this is for sure. But I remember I was brought up as a Catholic, and I remember it was something that it was like either a priest or it was something that was said at chapel and it's said or church, and it said something about your gifts and God, God gives you gifts. And I always remembered this, don't hide your gifts under a bushel. That it was so important that you were so lucky, you were so blessed when you were given a gift. Your mission was to share your gift, right? So even though I was the most people find this hard to maybe believe, but I was one of the most shyest, sensitive, nervous child you could ever imagine, right? I mean, if you see my report cards, but I pushed myself to share my gifts because I didn't want to waste my gifts and I didn't want to waste my life, right? Okay. I wanted to be, and then my own circumstances of being ill for so many years and having so many extreme situations and situations where so many things were robbed of me and so many fears, and I had so many threats of like cancer and all sorts of experiences that made me face my in many ways my mortality. When you have experiences and more than one experiences where your mortality is challenged, and when you face life-threatening situations, you face situations that are extremely, off the scale, even and especially over long term as well, you recognize that so many things that are on this surface, that material things are not that important, and that you recognize at a soul level what is really important and why we're really on earth. Most of my friends will say that I'm probably the least materialistic. I like nice things. I do like nice things. I like to have a nice home, but I don't own my home. And hopefully that will change one time, but it's never been a big priority because my spirituality, my soul, doing the work on my soul and investing in the right tools and techniques to do my work was always the most important thing, because I wanted to make sure that I'd done my mission correctly, right? And that I was coming to earth and giving back as much as what we receive. And we because I think in society, it's very easy in society, especially today, for people to take so much for granted, right? And I think when we understand the angelic aspects, and I'm a bit this back, the angelic aspect, the earth angel within us all, and the healing work as a light worker, we understand that. We understand that our whole purpose is, again, as I've said already, to bring, I think you need to hear this, heaven on earth. The light worker's role is to help bring the light and help bring hope. And I've said this for a long time. I do believe that the next part of a lot of light workers' mission is actually giving people practical help, showing up in situations with a certain amount of light, a certain amount of wisdom and awakening, right? So it's not just about you showing up as a healer. It's not just about you showing up with your tools and techniques, but it's showing up at a place, showing up at a situation. Many light workers are so awakened to so many of the things that are going on in the world cultures, and what's out, it's actually this big, almost it's a show that's being played at the moment. And a lot of us can see many of the cracks and some of the things that are going on behind the scenes, which are not as obvious to most people. And I don't like using this term, but Joe Bloggs, they maybe can't see the bigger picture, right? That there is actually so much illusion and deception. And what is getting put out in front of who are supposed to be the good guys, the bad guys. In many ways, it's inverted, right? And we're in a society where people are getting more and more confused and overwhelmed. And in this next stage of the awakening, they're going to need the earth angels. They're going to need people that already have that ability to channel in and be connected at a soul level, no matter how much chaos is going around about them. But it's also important that when you own that and you stand in your light in your channel and you birth your own light, you birth your own gifts, that you start attracting and you start weaving out that gold. You start weaving out that connection, like a tree that has solid roots. Because the more that you're stronger, the more that you stand in your light, you're sending out that wave of light out into the universe, and you're helping the connections. And it's so important for light workers to make strong connections with other light workers. I've spent the last few years, I tried to build up different things, and there was a few things happened. I found that I wasn't getting the engagement. People they didn't want to work together, or I was getting people who weren't really aware of what was going on. So for some of the projects that I was trying to do, they didn't even know the basics, and they were still in resistance. But the reality is we all are all at different, of course, we're all at different stations, we all have different understanding, we all have different views of things, of course. But the reality is we all are part of the jigsaw. And if you truly class yourself as a light worker and you truly want to be of help at this next point, get into your divinity. Work on your soul connection, work on your intuition, work on channeling that light, right? And get less attached to your tools, right? And what do I mean with that? Is things are shifting so dramatically that people's tools and how they do things are changing dramatically. You are at your soul level, because if you get so attached to things and tools and products and services, if, for example, it gets one of the things that I always, of course, there is certain tools and strategies that help you access things. Like if you think about meditation and things like that, we can, once we've learned meditation and we've mastered it, you don't need the meditation because you can achieve stillness like that. I can make myself get into stillness, and that's it, right? But what I mean is that if we get too attached to external things, and then suddenly, it's like going up a mountain and you don't have your mobile phone and you're attached to that mobile phone, but guess what? You don't get a connection. But if your connection is strong and you only depend on you're in a navigation system, you don't have to depend on any physical product, like a thing, a device, a machine, or having to do this process. It's so much more important so that we can go throughout a day helping people and be guided, right? I think this is a really important message. And I think it's a really important message, not just for this week, for us moving forward. So I hope that helped. Have a beautiful week. And remember, on that divinity win, remember about showing up and, your mission, rather than looking at it just what you're getting out of it, because see if you're resentful or you are feeling fatigued about what you're doing, or or there's some sort of conflict that you're frustrated that you're not getting, there is something not in the flow. One of the things that I find easy, even when there's no income coming in, when it's happened in my business, still can show up because I love what I do, right? And yeah, there's some things in my business recently. Of course, there's some things that need to change, and there's some things that I'm not as aligned with anymore. But I always then move myself into alignment where I'm being guided, because when I know I'm out of alignment, I know that there's something about my values at that point, or where I'm shifting, is not correct. Right? And it can also be moving me, getting me prepared for another shift. And of course, there's sometimes we maybe have to be patient till like all the ducks in a row so that we can move into that. But what we're doing is we're actually, it's almost like we're bending into that, flowing into that next stage. Anyway, have a great week. Bye for now, everyone.